Andy here from Sunshine State Insider, and today I'm out here at Universal Orlando Resort, where I thought I would take you guys along with me on a tour of Islands of Adventure. Gonna stop at every attraction along the way and give you some of my own thoughts, opinions, reviews, and pieces of advice along the way. So let's go take a little walk around Islands of Adventure. To get into the park, you will need to walk through Universal City Walk, past Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville right here, and towards this tall stone lighthouse that marks the entry to Islands of Adventure. And once inside, the first area you'll see is the port of entry. That has a few souvenir shops as well as a few places to grab some food and drinks. There's a bakery, a Starbucks, a Cinnabon, and the Backwater Bar is here. This park is laid out in a giant circle around a central lagoon, so if you keep walking in either direction, you will eventually see the whole thing. But today we are going to start by going right, where our first stop is going to be Seuss Landing. Seuss Landing has a number of kid-friendly rides, and the first one we're going to ride today is the Cat in the Hat. This is a dark ride attraction that takes you through the story of the Cat in the Hat book. It's a mostly gentle ride, but the cars do spin a little bit here and there. Not enough to really make you too dizzy, but it's something you might need to know if you're really sensitive to that. This is a kid's ride, obviously, but some people out there do think this ride is actually kind of creepy. I don't really disagree, honestly, and I could see this one as scaring some small kids. I'm also going to say this is one ride that is starting to show its age a little bit. Some dark rides age really well and become classics, but I'm not sure I'd put this one in that category. It could use a little bit of TLC, but the lines are usually short and it's an easy one to squeeze into your day. Next, we're going to go right across the walkway here to Carousel. This is your pretty standard merry-go-round carousel ride that no theme park is complete without. Only on this one, you'll be riding on creatures and characters from the Dr. Seussiverse. This one might be a must-do if you have little kids with you, but most grown-ups will probably just pass this one right by. And just across from the carousel, you'll find the one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish. This is an aerial carousel type of ride that lots of parks have. You're probably already familiar with the Dumbo ride at Disney's Magic Kingdom, and this one is a lot like that. But the twist here is that on this one, you might get a little bit wet. The ride will spray water at you, and to avoid the jets of water, you're supposed to follow the instructions in the song during the ride to fly over and around the water sprays. I'm honestly not really sure it's really accurate though. I've tried to follow along on this one, and I get wet every single time, no matter what. But that could very well be on me. User error and all that. Our last stop in Seuss Landing is the High in the Sky Seuss Trolley Train Ride. This is a slow and really easygoing monorail ride that meanders above Seuss Landing and gives off some pretty nice views of the park. The seats and the train feels kind of like a roller coaster when you get in, but there are no drops or fast turns. It's just a very chill and smooth, kid-friendly ride over Seuss Landing. Now we're going to leave Seuss Landing and eventually make our way to Hogsmeade in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter part of the park. But first, we will need to go through the Lost Continent area of the park. This is an area that's currently kind of a no man's land between Seuss Landing and Hogsmeade because there really aren't any attractions here anymore. There is Mythos, a full-table service restaurant that's very well loved and has a really cool looking building. And right over here, this used to be Poseidon's Fury, a walkthrough attraction that recently closed, and we don't yet know what is going to be put in here next. There are a few rumors swirling around out there. Some say this ride and this entire part of the park might be rethemed to Legend of Zelda, since there is going to be a Nintendo Mario themed ride and land over at the new Epic Universe Park, but we'll just have to wait and see. The Mystic Fountain is a pretty fun little thing to watch for a few minutes. It talks and interacts with the crowd, shoots water at people, stuff like that. Kids always get a big kick out of it. And we are almost to Hogsmeade, but first let's take a stop at the station here for the Hogwarts Express that you can use as a transportation system to ride back and forth between both parks. This will drop you off right at King's Cross Station at Diagon Alley over at the other park, but you do need a park hopper for that. And this is Hogsmeade, part of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter and easily the most popular and crowded part of the park, where we're going to stop at the most popular and crowded ride in the park, Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure. This is a thrilling, fast-paced family roller coaster through the Forbidden Forest where you will have encounters with Hagrid's magical creatures, just like that very long ride name promises. Now this, in my opinion, is the best ride in the park. It's the best ride at Universal, and it might even be the best ride in Florida. This is the one ride here you don't want to miss. It is a blast to ride, but it's really not what I would consider scary, just really, really fun. There aren't any big drops or inversions, there are a few surprises, and it's just a very fast-paced, twisting and winding ride that is a lot of fun. This is the most fun ride here, usually we'll have the longest line too, and you really can't miss it if you're able to do roller coasters. Just a couple of FYIs though, this ride does tend to be pretty unreliable and can break down occasionally throughout the day, so you might want to think about prioritizing this early so you don't miss out, and the line will usually be shortest early in the morning or late at night right before the park closes. If you get on this thing right before the park closes, it tends to be not as long as that sign out front will say, in my experience anyway. Also, if you are a bit claustrophobic, the queue on this one might be a bit of a challenge for you. Once you get to the indoors part of the queue, there are a few sections of tight, dark areas with low ceilings, so just be aware of that, have a heads up so that you know what to expect. After Hagrid's, we're going to head over to the centerpiece of this land and probably the most iconic thing at Universal, Hogwarts Castle, which is home to the ride Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey. But first, let's take a look at the Butterbeer line. Butterbeer is an iconic treat here. Everybody loves it. And that line is pretty long, but usually that big stand will have a longer line than the Butterbeer stand a little bit closer to the castle up here. And there's Ollivander's Wand Shop, where Harry famously got his wand. They do a pretty cool little show here, which is worth checking out if you've got the time. They pick a kid from the crowd and he becomes the chosen one, and they have some little special effects that happen. It's really fun, and it's definitely fun for the kid who gets picked. And there it is, the famous Hogwarts Castle. Absolutely magnificent. It dominates this corner of the park. I think this castle beats the one over at Walt Disney World. Maybe personal bias, though. And this is home to the Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey ride. This ride can be pretty hard to explain because there really is nothing else like it. It's part dark ride, part screen-based simulator that was really groundbreaking when it first opened. Just like Hagrid's, I'll also put this one as a must-do attraction just because of how immersive and unique it is, especially if you're a Harry Potter fan. If you're a Harry Potter fan, do not miss this. But this is one of those rides that some of you with motion sickness might have a little bit of an issue with. This one alternates between physical sets and screens, and sometimes even I get off this one feeling a little bit wobbly, and I'm not usually prone to motion sickness too much, but this one does tend to get me a little bit, especially if I go on it back to back. Just wanted to throw that out there because you really don't want to miss this one, but be aware if you suffer from motion sickness. But in the Hogwarts Castle, it's the queue here that might be the star of the show. This is the best themed queue here at Universal, maybe the best queue in any Florida park, and you are walking right through Hogwarts where you can see lots of iconic stuff from the movies and books. The queue alone is a must-do if you're a Harry Potter fan. And this is a great ride to take advantage of the single rider line too. Your party will be split up, you won't be sitting with the people you came with, but the line moves really fast in the single rider line, and it is usually almost a walk-on when you go the single rider route. You will miss a lot of the queue though, so be aware of that. Maybe a better thing to do if you've already ridden it once and you want to go again with a shorter line. My family takes advantage of the single rider queue on this thing all the time, and it is usually always a walk-on. It will save you lots of time. Typically, all the single rider lines at Universal will save you a lot of time, except Hagrid's and Velocicoaster. Those two usually are not going to be worth single rider line, but most all the other rides that have that will save you lots of time. And hiding over in this corner of the park is Flight of the Hippogriff. This is a very kid-friendly, small roller coaster. Not that crazy, not that thrilling. It is kind of fun. If it has a short line, I do recommend it, but if it has a long line, and this line can get kind of long, much longer than it's worth really, I might skip it, but your kids might want to do this one, and it really is a great first roller coaster for kids. It'll get them ready for stuff like Velocicoaster and Hulk down the road. Next up, we are going to walk over to Jurassic Park, but first, this bridge here has to be one of the best views of the castle, and you can see it is a very popular photo spot. Earlier, I said that Hagrid's is the best overall ride in the park, but this one right here, Velocicoaster, is easily the most thrilling, and it might be my favorite roller coaster of all time, anywhere on Earth. And some days, depending on when you ask me, this might be my own personal favorite ride at the park. Velocicoaster is insanely intense. It is a high-speed launch coaster with a relentless pace, a 155-foot tall top hat, and 4 inversions, including the one that has become pretty classic, the absolutely terrifying Mosasaurus roll over the water that I think is probably the scariest single moment on any ride anywhere. I kind of consider it a personal point of pride when I'm able to keep my hands up through that whole thing. It actually feels like the ride is trying to throw you out, and it is unforgettable. I love it. And this is a very smooth ride and is really comfortable to ride too. It doesn't beat you up and rattle you around like some of the other roller coasters here might. Velocicoaster is another one with an amazing queue with some incredibly realistic raptors that you get to have a very close encounter with. After Velocicoaster, we are going to cut through the Jurassic Park Discovery Center right here, which is a quick service burger place, another gift shop, and a little dinosaur museum, and stop over at Raptor Encounter. Raptor Encounter isn't a ride, more like a walk-through attraction and photo-op meet-and-greet spot where you can interact with a real, live Velociraptor. It's actually quite cool to see in person, and it's fun to watch people freak out when they're having their photo taken, like I did right there. After this, we're going to head over to another classic original attraction here, Jurassic Park River Adventure. This is a water ride where you will ride on a boat into Jurassic Park that starts as a nice, peaceful little float down the river where you'll come face to face with lots of rubber animatronic dinosaurs. And it ends with a dramatic splashdown after everything goes sideways, as it tends to in a Jurassic Park movie. This is a ride that I actually like quite a bit, but this is another one that has been showing its age a little bit and has had some maintenance issues over the past few years, to say the least. Some of the dinosaurs are starting to look a little worse for the wear these days, but it's still a fun ride, and you really don't get that wet on it, despite that huge splash. It looks like a crazy splash from the outside, but when you're on it, you usually just kind of get a refreshing little splash in the face. It won't really soak you to your clothes or your shoes too much, and it feels great on a summer day. And I say usually, I have gotten pretty wet on this ride once or twice. Usually if I'm sitting in like the front left or right corners, if you're down there, you might get pretty wet, but most of the other seats on this ride, you'll be okay. Camp Jurassic is a huge kids' play area with lots of slides and climbing nets, bouncy bridges and caves and stuff like that to explore. This is also where you can ride Pterodon Flyers, a gentle inverted flying coaster that glides very smoothly over the treetops in the Jurassic Park section of Islands of Adventure. Adults can ride this one, but only if they have a child with them. I've been on this when my kids were little, and it's a lot of fun, and it's a really good first coaster for kids too. I'd like to think that my kids grew up to like roller coasters because I introduced them to stuff like this early, and they really liked this when they were kids, and now they love Velocicoaster and all the big ones. Classic photo op spot to take your picture with T-Rex and a car from the movie. And some of these photo op spots are actually self-serve. You can use the app to trigger the picture and it'll save it right to your phone. Next is Skull Island, Reign of Kong, which is weirdly kind of its own thing over here in this corner of the park. I don't think it's supposed to be part of Jurassic Park because that really wouldn't make any sense. And it's definitely not part of Toon Lagoon. So this is an attraction here at Islands of Adventure that really doesn't have a themed area to call home. This is kind of a combination dark ride, motion simulator 3D attraction where the screen is wrapped around the vehicle so the action is happening all around you. But the best thing about this ride is the truly awesome animatronic of Kong that you get to see on this ride. I know there's a lot of mixed opinions on this one, but I think this ride is actually pretty fun and a little bit underrated. My son says this is the most mid ride in all of Universal, though, to use his own words. He says it's not great, but it's not bad, it's just mid. I don't really think he's wrong. I think this ride is pretty average, middle of the road, but I think it's a little bit underrated, and it's worth checking out if the line isn't too long. I will throw out another couple of warnings for this one, though. The queue is very dark and a little bit claustrophobic, and this is another one that might not be great for those who are prone to motion sickness on the screen-based 3D rides. The next themed land here is Toon Lagoon, and this is a land that's themed to old comic strips and comic characters like Popeye and Kathy and Dudley Do-Right. In my own opinion, this is a land that's theme probably doesn't really connect with the kids these days, but it does have two water rides that definitely will connect with them. Kids love getting wet on rides, but if you're not into that, I see you. I'm not really into getting too soaked either, and this is a land that you might not have much you want to ride if you don't like water rides. Both of them here will leave you absolutely drenched. Ripsaw Falls is a long log flume ride based on Dudley Do-Right. This is kind of like Universal's answer to Splash Mountain, but it will get you soaked. It will get you soaked, but it has a very fun and very fast final drop. I actually do kind of like this one, and it's worth getting wet on the hottest days, but I don't really love the seating orientation this one has on the logs. They're kind of awkward to get in and out of, and you have to kind of straddle the person in front of you, which I don't think a lot of us really love. But if you don't want to get wet, you can at least make sure others get wet. Right over here, you can push a button and blast a stranger in the face with some nice cold water for $1 a push. It's actually strangely addictive, and I'm going to even say that this right here is the best $1 you'll spend at the park. And the other water ride here is Popeye's Bilge Rat Barges. Now this is a ride that I have only ridden once in my entire life. And that's because this one doesn't get you wet. It gets you soaked, like you've been thrown into a swimming pool with your clothes on soaked. I can almost deal with that on a really hot Orlando summer day, but it's getting my shoes and socks soaked that I can't handle. So definitely be aware of that. This one will absolutely drench you and could possibly even ruin your day if your socks get wet and you start blistering and chafing. And I'm not into that. I don't know too many people are into that. My daughter has been on this and then instantly regretted coming off of it. She went on this in jeans and she was just drenched for the rest of the day. So I personally avoid this one, but it is fun to sit up here on these bridges and overlooks and watch other people make bad decisions. Leaving Toon Lagoon, and we are heading into the final themed land in the park, Marvel Superhero Island. And you might be thinking, doesn't Disney own Marvel? So how is all this stuff here and not over at Disney? And you'd be right, Disney does own Marvel. But Universal had built all this before Disney bought Marvel, and through a bunch of legal loopholes, it gets to stay. But all of this stuff here is based on the Marvel comic books, not the Marvel movies. So everything here will have a bit of that retro comic book look that I honestly really like. I think this is a really cool land and still holds up. There are 4 rides here, with the most popular and my favorite being The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man. This is a fast-paced 3D motion simulator and dark ride where you will help Spider-Man stop the sinister syndicate from stealing the Statue of Liberty. This ride has a lot of great effects, both practical and 3D, and despite this one being here since opening day in 1999, this ride has really held up and has aged really well. It's still a big fan favorite, and I'm going to say it's one of the can't-miss rides here at Islands of Adventure. It does have some 3D motion simulator stuff, so word of caution to those who get motion sickness from those kinds of rides, but if you're not one of those people, and maybe even if you are, don't miss this. This ride is a classic. And right next to Spider-Man is Dr. Doom's Fearfall. This one is kind of like a drop tower, but you are shot up from the tower first before you drop back down and bounce a few times before it ends. It's very short, but it is pretty fun, and it's not really as scary as it looks, in my opinion at least. My kids both actually love this ride, and we once went on it like 4 times in a row when there was no line, which isn't uncommon. This one will often have a short wait. It's not a very popular ride, and it is very short, so I wouldn't really recommend waiting in a long line for this one, but the queue area is actually pretty cool and is very well themed and is worth checking out just for that. And in this corner of the park is where you will find the incredible Hulk coaster. This is a launch coaster that you can see from lots of different angles from all over the park, and it is another very popular and very well-loved roller coaster here. But this one does have a bit of a reputation for having kind of a rough ride, especially in the back half of it. It might rattle you around a little bit, maybe bang your head against the restraints a few times. So it's not uncommon for a lot of riders to come off this one with a little bit of a headache. For that reason alone, I can really only do this maybe once or twice per trip, but it is still very fun, especially that launch and the first few inversions at the start. This one really starts with a bang. Hulk is another good one for single riders too. The single rider line on this one is usually really short, and it will save you lots of time in line if you want to use that single rider queue. And last, and honestly, probably least, is the Storm Force Accelerator. This is a spinning teacup style ride that's hidden all the way in the corner here, and a lot of people probably don't even know it's here, or they don't want to ride it because this might be the least popular ride in the park. Very often there is no wait for this thing. And if you've ever been on the teacups at Magic Kingdom or a Tilt-A-Whirl type ride at the State Fair, this is kind of like that, but with an X-Men theme. And it probably goes without saying that this one is probably going to have a big motion sickness warning all over it for a lot of you guys. So that's going to do it for our little tour of Islands of Adventure. Let me know in the comments what your favorite ride is here and what you think they should do with the Poseidon's Fury and that whole Lost Continent area. Should they turn that into Legend of Zelda, or do you have a better idea? And as always, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you want to go along with me as we explore more fun things to do all around Florida. And tell one other person about this video who you think might like it. That really helps the channel grow, and I will see you next time.